Carl, good to see you again, sir. 20 years of working together. A lot of good news out of San Diego. The last few years have been
bad news.
Bad news.
Yep.
But ebb and flow of politics. That's what it is. But with crisis provides opportunity. You've shown in the last couple of months, really, that there is opportunity to be had. What can we do to get San Diego back into the hands of sane people?
Well, I want to remind people that it's not always been good, even though right now it's been bad. When you and I started collaborating together, we were very quickly heading far left. PLAs were the norm. Everything the unions wanted, they got. And so we've been in this spot before. People will argue that San Diego County has shifted so much it's a lost cause. That's not true at all. The reality is that yes, we've had wins against us, but our side, the side of freedom and the side of the merit shop construction industry, we haven't been really fighting on all cylinders. So let's fix that first. And I think that we have shown that in this recent race in La Mesa. So earlier this year, while I was focused for the past 8 years on the state of California, I reactivated something called Reform San Diego in January of this year. And it's focused on rebuilding our infrastructure in San Diego and fighting on all the local races, whether it's school board, city council, county commission, county board, or SANDAG, the SANDAG Regional Transportation Agency. All of these have been neglected for about 10 years, certainly for the past 4 or 5 years. And now we are suffering the damage, which is the Democrats, the pro-union politicians are ascendant. They've been able to get a lot of seats, but we just now are turning the corner. So in La Mesa, we were able to flip a seat. La Mesa voted as a city 65% for Joe Biden, 35% for Donald Trump. And yet we just won 52% of the vote in the recent special election. And we were outspent 2-1. And Laura Lothian is amazing. She was a hard worker, and she absolutely opposes project labor agreements and wants to help small businesses. Cut the red tape, let's get shovels in the ground, let's actually build things, and let's have prosperity. And so it can be done. Just about 4 months ago, we flipped the control of Carlsbad City Council. You had this wingnut, Corey Schumacher.
Big PLA proponent.
Big PLA proponent. And she also had a strategy. What she's proposed was a community choice aggregation program to take over all the electrical services for the city, which also meant the infrastructure, the construction associated with the electricity providers. And she did it simply because she wants a PLA on all of that work. And she also wanted to be on SANDAG to focus on what? Getting PLAs on all the SANDAG work. So we targeted her for recall. And she certainly was one of our best helpers in that recall because of her misconduct, repeated misconduct. We collected the signatures. We showed her a poll showing that we were going to win overwhelmingly. And she opted to resign a week before we turned in our signatures. And so we flipped with that signature drive, the control of the Carlsbad City Council from blue to red. And that secures another seat on SANDAG against the PLAs and for construction. Yeah. Right. Well, remember when people say, because I talked to some of the construction companies saying, well, I'm okay, I'm a signatory, portions of my company are signatory. The reality is this, when you have SANDAG saying that they are going to have all sorts of climate-related free transit programs, they want to hire more bus drivers, that ain't infrastructure. That's not construction, that's overhead. SANDAG just voted to double the overhead charges on all transportation projects, meaning less money for actual construction contracts. And so I keep telling even companies that may be a signatory on one of their elements in their company that you're getting screwed. The taxpayers are getting screwed. The construction industry, whether they're union or non-union, they're getting screwed in this as well. And that's why we need to restore some sanity and balance in the city races and of course these county races.
But also and I understand that because they sit on my board as well, and I've dealt with them for 20 years, these people that they get the PLA issue, but sometimes they say, well, I'm signatory, so this isn't really something that's a threat to me. I support you philosophically, but what I think sometimes they lose sight of is the fact that California is the 51st least business-friendly state in the country. Puerto Rico beats us out, for God's sake. What that means is opportunity costs, that are gone, things that aren't being built here. Chula Vista should have been built 15 years ago. Instead, it was built in Aurora, Colorado.
Yep.
Would you have liked to have had your people employed there? So I think they lose sight. And one thing we're going to be refocusing on is don't be content. 9 years ago, we walked away with trouncing the unions in the city of San Diego, 58 to 42% banning PLAs. Okay, things are done here. We can move on to other things. Our side tends to think like that. Their side never thinks like that. They double down. They rethink, how do we come up with a new strategy? And that's what they did. And now it's bearing fruit. What do we need to tell our people who I think took their foot off the gas and said, we just passed, I think we passed a half a dozen PLA bans. We kicked their ass all over can I say that? All over the place. And then they kind of did what they do. They walk away and just go back to their families at night. We need to re-engage.
The other side never gives up. When they get a loss, they regroup, they learn, and they counterattack. So first thing is, we cannot be complacent. I think now people realize you can't be complacent because look how bad the situation has gotten. The second is that you can win, and 2022 is going to be an opportunity year for us. So the win's going to be at our back, but that's not enough. If we don't have the resources, if we don't have the candidates, if we don't have the collaboration, we won't be able to basically do a huge leap back to where we used to be. There are about 300 local races next year, and that includes races where there's multiple seats on the same ballot. So 300 local races next year in San Diego. And I believe that we can substantially increase our representation in each of these water boards, city councils, school boards, et cetera, if we have this integrative model. And we plan to contest areas where if we invest in a city council seat, let's find out who's running for school board underneath there. Let's find out who's doing community college. Let's find out who's doing state assembly, state senate, and Congress. Let's look at who's in the county board seats. Let's look at who's in the fire district, and basically put resources in that allow us to take all of those seats back with $1 of an expenditure versus individual dollars that we're trying to parcel out. We also need to be strategic about which districts we need to flip. So in a district, for example, Carlsbad, where you used to have a 3-2, if you flip one seat, it's a 2-3, and it's back to your opposition to PLAs. La Mesa, same thing. I know that I have 2 votes against project labor agreements, 2 votes against the mileage tax. I need a 3rd. We just picked up our 3rd vote. Now we have to keep that. And so we've been thinking strategically. Up in Escondido, I'll just go ahead and say it, we're going to take the mayor out of office. Paul McNamara on Sandag has been a proponent of rating the money, put it in transit. He's a proponent of PLAs, and he speaks for Escondido. That's a pretty sizable city in terms of the weighted vote as well. We're going to take Paul McNamara out of office.
That's next year as well.
That's coming up next year. And so I have never seen more opportunities. My biggest fear is that this great cycle where everyone is ready for change is going to pass us by because we don't have the bandwidth and the resources to actually support and gobble up all the opportunities that we know are coming our way. I want to leap us forward this cycle because you don't know what 2024 or 2026 will look like. But if we restore parity in this cycle, I think some of this damage that they've done in recent years can be addressed and fixed.
The one thing you can be guaranteed about the left, and I say this understanding that there's Democrats in our coalition, that I deal with that are anti-PLA. I'm going to speak to the Black Contractors Association tomorrow. Probably isn't going to be a Republican in the room, but they hate PLAs because they discriminate explicitly against their young men and women that are apprentices that aren't union. Grover Norquist calls it the Leave Us Alone Coalition. Whatever you want to refer to it as. When the other side gets in power, they always overstep.
Oh yes.
Mileage tax. Really, you're going to increase the taxes on people for every mile they drive in San Diego? That's insane. So when that opportunity provides itself, what I think is important for our side to understand is we need to have an infrastructure in place that's always ready to take advantage of it, not have to build it up every time. We tend to build it up. achieve some success, and then walk away. The other side is constantly
running it
and never letting up.
And that's the whole concept of Reform California, is that we are a permanent campaign.
Right.
And Reform San Diego is a permanent campaign. When I came on the scene in 2002, we built basically Reform San Diego, and it was a permanent campaign for 10 years. And you saw what we did. We flipped seats. We got those initiatives passed. We had them on
defeated
the run.
Tax increases.
Every single tax increase they put up, we defeated, and we had them on the run. That's because we had a permanent campaign.
Right.
We never stopped, okay? On the off year, we were collecting signatures to qualify initiatives. On the on year, we were electing people to the various positions. So now we are back with that permanent effort. That permanent effort went away, by the way, in 2013. We didn't have it between 2013 and January 2021. Look at the result. And so we need to fix not only that, in which we've established a permanent campaign. We've been active, Carlsbad, La Mesa. We're doing town halls against the mileage tax, against project labor agreements, et cetera.
Huge opportunity.
All around the county, and now we're pivoting to next year. The question is, will we have the support, the resources, the bandwidth to literally drive the final part of this strategy home?
This isn't a presidential race. We tend to focus on the macro and never on the micro, down in the grass, in the weeds, so to speak.
Yeah.
In these races, you don't need to spend like you do on a presidential level. It doesn't take millions of dollars to flip a La Mesa City Council seat or another seat on Sandag. And I think a lot of our folks get attracted to those bright, shiny objects that are the presidential races or the assembly races or the gubernatorial races.
In Ohio,
Right. But the reality is, for a little bit, you can get a lot here locally that impacts my members' ability to make money.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something we need to refocus on. I'm committed to doing it. I know you are. You've always been a great leader in that regard. But what would you say to those people who I think look, my guys want to go home every night and spend time with their family. The other side goes to a confab after quote unquote work hours and determines how to create a strategy to screw my guys.
Right.
And it's horrible, but it's effective.
Mm-hmm.
So what's a message to our people to get re-engaged? Because the marriage shop industry was a significant cog in that machine that really helped turn this town around 10 years ago.
No, you were huge partners in that. When a lot of the construction firms kind of backed off and got, for whatever reason.
About their business.
We lost a big part of the coalition. First and foremost, recognize that as quickly as it changed the one direction, it can also as quickly change the opposite direction. Take a look at Virginia's election, take a look at La Mesa's election. A 65% number in La Mesa, a 55% number in Virginia, and of course, it flips to a complete opposite outcome in a pretty dramatic way. In La Mesa, we had a 17-point swing in our direction. So as quickly as things have, gone the opposite direction in San Diego, we can also in this cycle.
State of New Jersey went from a plus 16 Biden to basically 40,000 votes showing up at the last minute to say
razor thin. So have some hope. This is the cycle that we go all in. And once we get these wins, then you have the leverage to actually change these bad policies, get prosperity back, get the contracts back in a fair way, fair and open competition. That's the only thing we've ever asked for.
Right.
And then you can actually, I'll be blunt, there are Republicans out there who are cowards on these boards because they realize, if I don't go along with the union, I'm gonna get targeted. When we start winning again, suddenly they stiffen their spine. So, I can't wait for Laura Lothian to get on that city council because she is fierce. And the other two centrists on that council will definitely be stiffer against some of this crap that's coming out. So lots to get to this year. When you are asked, definitely check in with Eric, definitely check in with me, and ask us about the candidates. That's really what you should be doing is this a winnable race? Is this a target race? Should I invest my resources here, or is there a different race for us to invest in? And if we all work together strategically, we're gonna have a very good year.
Carl's always been an integral part in the success that's been achieved here in San Diego. He's not only smart, but he understands strategy, and we appreciate him sitting down today and helping to remind us that there are people who wish to do all of our people harm. It's sad, but it's a state of doing business here in California. If you don't want to deal with it, Texas is wide open. Idaho is wide open. They're You can't get a U-Haul going there, but you can move there. If you want to stay here and fight, like a lot of us want to do, then we need to re-engage. So thank you for your time, Carl.
Thank you so much.
See you again, man.
Absolutely.
All right.